Cryptid upset, no one bothered to inform him of his tragic backstory. Part 9 by Crimson Seekers. Attack Cuckoo at Hawks Official. My therapist laughs at a joke I made. Me, to myself. This is great. I'm gonna get a good grade in therapy, something that is both normal to want and possible to achieve. Petra Rabbit at Miracle Official, replying to at Hawks Official. Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I can make fun of you for it, 10 being I just need to tag Genist in this conversation. How concerned should I be about this tweet? Attack Cuckoo at Hawks Official, replying to at Miracle Official. Don't worry, I know my therapist sees my Twitter, so I'm definitely going to hear about this. Think of these tweets as an unsubtle cry for help to prep her for our next session. Petra Rabbit at Miracle Official. Still concerning, but also clever, and kind of funny. Moriko at Pepper Brandy, replying to at Hawks Official. Honestly, seeing the #1 hero talk so openly about mental health and therapy, and working to normalize talking about it, makes me so happy. Guess who's still fucking alive? Dabi announced, as he came through Kurogiri's portal with a fresh bill of health from whatever sketchy underground clinic they'd just come from. He hadn't bothered to check. God damn it, he heard Shigaraki mutter under his breath. That's right, it's your favorite burnt bacon bitch back at it again. Dabi! Toga cheered in excitement, head popping over the couch. You're alive! You're alive! Twice joined in, popping up next to her. I wish you died! Health risk extraordinaire is here to stay, Dabi called out monotonously, the portal closing behind him. What the fuck are we doing now? Well, we were figuring out our next plan of action, Shigaraki snapped. Sit down, we're doing some troubleshooting. There's gotta be a glitch in the system or something. Oh? Dabi asked, throwing himself into a plush chair with a raised brow. How so? The heroes Hawks is working with are almost done with their investigation, and we're almost done with ours, and we still haven't found a single clue about your identity. What's the chances of that? Pretty low, Spinner offered. Shigaraki snapped his fingers and pointed at him, continuing to talk. Exactly! So we need to figure out what the fuck is going on. And what do you suggest we do, genius? Not much we can do except put up, please call if you know this poster's for me, like I'm a runaway dog or something. That's a shit plan. Of course we're not doing that, Shigaraki said, waving his hand at Dabi dismissively. We're going to be bringing forward what I proposed back in January. Dabi stared at Shigaraki for a moment, raking through his mind to try and figure out what he was referencing. Surprisingly, the memory came to the forefront of his mind easily, and his eyes widened as he realized what was being suggested. Shigaraki, no! Unless you have a better idea? Shigaraki asked him scathingly. Dabi opened and closed his mouth before crossing his arms sullenly. Great. We're in agreement then. I just want it to be known, Dabi said angrily, that this plan is absolutely going to ruin my chances of getting laid, so if it doesn't work, I'm going to murder you. No one cares about you getting your dick wet with Hawks. Now shut up and focus. We need to start planning. Phoenix Wright at Hawks Official. Concept. I punch my old handler when I see him in court today. Phoenix Wright at Hawks Official, replying to at Hawks Official. Follow up. I also punch my egg donor when I see her in court next week. Tried to put me on the cover of Vogue at Miracle Official, replying to at Hawks Official. Do it. Best Genist at Best Genist Official, replying to Hawks Official. As a hero, I cannot professionally condone violence. However, I will refrain from condemning it in this particular case. Tried to put me on the cover of Vogue at Miracle Official, replying to at Best Genist Official and at Hawks Official. You heard Gene Boy, Hawks. Beat their asses. There are a few things we need to go over before I can let you go for the weekend, Shota announced blandly, relishing in the crushed look some of his students gave him, eyes flicking back and forth between him and the clock. First of all, the final decision has been reached on how the new age limits in the Hero Restriction Training Act are going to impact you. He watched their shoulders rise and tense in almost complete unison. Thanks to Article 39 of the Constitution, the retroactive application of the laws is forbidden, so you will all, indeed, be the last hero class to graduate UA High School. There was a moment of silence, in which Shota could have heard a pin drop. He watched the gears turn in his students' brains, the pieces clicking together, and their eyes brightening. The class started to let out a deafening cheer, some of them standing up and jumping around in euphoria. Shota was feeling generous, so he allowed them to enjoy themselves for a few more seconds before activating his quirk. They were all silent and back in their seats within a few moments, though many still had wide, beaming smiles on their faces. Excitement. Disgusting. All of you turned in forms to leave campus tomorrow. They've all been approved, however, if you're planning to go to either the TPD or HPSC protest, which I suspect most of you are. A solid half of his class averted their eyes guiltily, while the rest gave their best shot at poker face, none succeeding apart from Todoroki. Try not to get arrested. Stay out of trouble, and you can all protest to your heart's content. Dismissed. Shota sighed as the students flooded out of the classroom, already loudly chattering on their way back to the dorms. He mentally prepared himself for the next day. Despite the warning he gave, he knew he was going to have to pick up at least one of them from the police department. He knew. I've got the blocky markers. Momo's got the poster board, Jiro called, as she and Yayorozu came into the common room, arms full of aforementioned supplies. Izuku perked up, along with much of the rest of 1A. Who's ready to unlock their inner punk and get ready to protest the government? Izuku laughed as they spread out the supplies along the floor, having moved the couches aside to work on the floor in front of the TV. Tokuyami had claimed the spot closest to the screen, and they let him without much fuss. Hawks' case against the HPSC was set to continue in a few minutes. Hey, Todoroki-kun, Izuku greeted, sitting down next to his friend, who tilted his head slightly in greeting. Excited? I suppose, he responded blandly, tapping the capped end of his marker against the poster in front of him. Izuku took a moment to observe Todoroki's tense posture and pinched brow. It was always hard to try and get a read on how the split-haired teen was doing. He didn't express much with his face and was fairly quiet, and his words were mostly neutral when he did speak, but... Are you okay, Todoroki-kun? Izuku asked in a lower voice, using the chatter of the other students around them to mask his question. You've been a little off, I guess, the past 2 months. Todoroki blinked lethargically and stared at him for a long, long moment. Izuku felt his cheeks turn red as he flustered. Not that you have to tell me or anything. I don't want to intrude on your business. I just wanted to make sure you're okay and... No, it's fine, Todoroki said, turning his gaze back to the poster board. Hawks was at Toya's funeral. Any other person would have warmed up before getting to that, Izuku thought. Todoroki, on the other hand, was blunt, almost to a fault. We always thought he was a school friend of his or something. Izuku paused, processing the statement before his eyes widened. Oh. Todoroki hummed flatly in response. Fuyumi has his contact information, apparently. He's her fiancé's friend, so... Oh, she's getting married? Izuku asked. Give her my congratulations. Todoroki nodded. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were saying? She's been quiet since the news came out. so I think she talked to him about it. She hasn't shared what she knows with me and Natsuo, however. Izuku was quiet for a moment, mulling over the information in his mind. I think Hawks is supposed to be giving testimony on others in the program today, before the final verdict is made. I know. They lapsed into silence, apart from a brief exchange when Todoroki asked for a suggestion as to what he should put on the poster. Soon enough, Tokiyami was turning up the volume on the TV as the coverage of the HPSC trial continued. The chatter in the room died, and they all watched with rapt attention, the only other sound in the room the occasional squeak of a marker. Hawks's face was flat as he answered question after question. As the primary witness and the only documented survivor of the legacy program who still retained all memories, he'd probably spent more time on the stand than all the other parties involved in the case combined. We have one participant of the program left. It was the most redacted file and gave us little information other than their hero name. Are you able to share information with the court about Supernova? Hawks's face lost even more emotion at the question, if it were possible. Yes. Do you know Supernova's legal name? Todoroki Toya. The shocked silence of the courtroom was matched only by the shocked silence of the common room. Every head slowly turned to stare at Todoroki, whose marker was creaking under his grip. A fierce glare from under his bangs had all of them turning back towards the television, although Izuku was easily able to spot them taking glances back at him. He slowly laid a hand on Todoroki's shoulder, who simply hunched in on himself, but his eyes remained glued to the screen as the questions continued. And how did you meet Todoroki-san? He was assigned to be my roommate after Sakisa killed himself. What was your relationship with Todoroki-san? Izuku felt Todoroki tense under his fingers, shoulders drawing close to his ears. Hawks's face hardened, and his words came out in a clipped voice, contrasting the flat monotone he'd answered the rest of the questions in. We were involved. There was another ringing silence. How long did you know Todoroki-san? Almost 3 years, from when we were introduced to when he died. Is the court able to presume that his training and the treatment he was given was similar to that of the other Legacy Program trainees? Yes. How did Todoroki-san die? Izuku wrapped Todoroki in a hug, letting the other boy tuck his head into his shoulder as Hawks answered, again in a terse tone. Toya was an odd case in the program. He was often sent home on the weekends. He didn't come back home 1 week, and I was informed a few days later he had self-immolated at home. Todoroki's shoulders shook slightly, and Izuku elected to not comment on the slight dampness of the collar of his shirt. How did the commission react upon hearing news of his death? Hawks let out a tired sigh, sagging deep into his chair, something pained shining in his eyes. They let me go to his funeral. After that, I was given a psych evaluation to ensure I could continue training at the desired pace, and then they generally just pretended he never existed, like most of the other trainees. I wasn't assigned a roommate after him, though. They didn't want me growing attached again. Thank you. I have no more questions for the witness. There was quiet in both the court and the dorm as a break was called after the almost 2-hour testimony. Todoroki's chest shook slightly as he took several deep breaths before lifting his face from Izuku's shoulder, his red eye noticeably red, while his left was disguised by surrounding scar tissue. Todoroki-kun, Izuku asked slowly. You okay? I'm fine, he said blankly, after taking a few moments to smooth his face over again, although his voice grated ever so slightly. He turned his head to look at the rest of the quiet common room, all of their classmates, except Kachan, but he was reading something on his phone anyway, having turned their heads to pretend they weren't eavesdropping. If we leave early tomorrow, Todoroki began in a louder voice, catching the attention of everyone, we'll have time to get breakfast at Griandol on Endeavor's credit card. Isn't that place hella expensive? Zoro asked. Yes. If anyone needs to buy anything at all tomorrow, I'll pay for it. No questions asked. Dude, Kaminari said, how much spite is fueling your decisions right now? As I am currently unable to put my father 6 feet underground, a lot. Any more questions? After a few moments, Kaminari spoke again. Who's ready to go do some fucking anarchy tomorrow? Oh, hell yeah! Zoro and Mina yelled, sharing a group high-five with the blonde. Izuku laughed at the display as chatter picked back up in the room. He watched Todoroki out of the corner of his eye. He seemed a little lighter. Izuku wasn't sure what he was doing was the healthiest way to deal with what he had just learned, but he seemed happier at least. Izuku allowed himself a small smile. This is such a fucking bad idea, Dabi repeated for the nth time. Shut the fuck up! It's starting to sound like Spinner, Shigaraki snapped, both ignoring the offended exclamation from the mute in question. Kurogiri, compress! You know what to do? An exasperated air emitted from the two adults. Of course, Shigaraki, Compress sighed. I understand, Tomura. And wow, Kurogiri was disappointed. Not that shame was something to stop Shigaraki from doing what he wanted, but it comforted Dabi to know that the bartender wasn't happy with the plan either. Hey, it's Mika. Sorry for the shorter update. I'm going on holiday, so I'm recording a whole bunch of these in a row, and I figured I'd spare my voice a little bit. I just wanted to quickly say thanks for 500 subscribers. And if you're interested, maybe check out some of my other socials. I sing quite a bit on TikTok, if that's something you're interested in.